Life is not a competition with others. Life is a competition with yourself. The question isn't, am I better than him or her? The question is, am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I growing? Am I improving? Am I becoming more than I used to be? That's the real game. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's dive into our first principle, and I want you to listen carefully because each one of these builds upon the other like steps on a staircase leading to excellence. The first way to become the best at anything is to develop an unshakable philosophy of personal responsibility. You see, most people go through life thinking that what happens to them is more important than what happens in them. They believe that circumstances control their destiny, that luck determines their fate, that other people hold the keys to their success. But here's what I've discovered. It's not what happens to you that determines the quality and quantity of your life. It's what you do about what happens to you. Personal responsibility means you understand that you are the architect of your own experience. You design your days, you craft your character, you choose your responses. When something goes wrong, instead of looking for someone to blame, you look for something to learn. Instead of making excuses, you make adjustments. Instead of pointing fingers, you take action. This philosophy becomes the foundation of excellence because it puts you in charge. It says, I am responsible for my results. I am responsible for my growth. I am responsible for my success or failure. And when you truly embrace this philosophy, something magical happens. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming a victor over circumstances. But personal responsibility goes deeper than just accepting blame when things go wrong. It means taking responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, your health, your relationships, your finances, everything. It means understanding that if you want your life to change, you must change. If you want things to get better, you must get better. If you want more, you must become more. Now, this might sound overwhelming at first, but here's the beautiful thing about personal responsibility. It's incredibly liberating. Once you realize that you have the power to change your life, once you understand that your future is in your hands, you stop feeling helpless and start feeling hopeful. You stop being a passenger in your own life and start being the driver. This brings us naturally to our second principle, which flows directly from the first. The second way to become the best at anything is to commit to becoming a lifelong student. Excellence is not a destination you arrive at. It's a journey you embark upon. And the fuel for this journey is learning. You see, the day you stop learning is the day you start declining. There's no such thing as staying the same. You're either growing or you're going backwards. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. Now, when I talk about learning, I'm not just talking about formal education, although that can be valuable. I'm talking about developing an insatiable curiosity about your chosen field, about life, about people, about ideas. I'm talking about becoming someone who reads, who studies, who observes, who asks questions, who seeks to understand. Here's something fascinating. The most successful people I know are also the most curious people I know. They're always asking why and how and what if. They're not satisfied with surface knowledge. They want to understand the deeper principles, the underlying causes, the hidden connections that others miss. But learning isn't just about acquiring information. It's about transforming information into insight. Insight into understanding, and understanding into wisdom. You see, information tells you what happened, but wisdom tells you what it means and what to do about it. The best in any field are constantly studying their craft. They read everything they can get their hands on. They attend seminars and workshops. They find mentors and teachers. They study the masters who came before them. They analyze failures as carefully as they celebrate successes. They understand that mastery is not a moment in time, but a way of life. And here's what's interesting. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. This isn't discouraging. It's exciting. It means there's always more territory to explore, always more ways to improve, always new levels of excellence to achieve. But knowledge without application is merely trivia. That's why our third principle is so crucial. The third way to become the best at anything is to develop the discipline of consistent daily practice. You know, people often ask me, what's the secret to success? And I tell them there is no secret, there are only fundamentals practiced consistently over time. Excellence isn't about doing something extraordinary once. It's about doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, day after day after day. Practice is the bridge between learning and mastery. It's where knowledge meets reality, where theory becomes skill, where potential transforms into performance. But not just any practice, deliberate, focused, intentional practice that pushes you beyond your comfort zone and challenges you to grow. The amateur practices until he gets it right. The professional practices until he can't get it wrong. There's a profound difference between these two approaches. The amateur is satisfied with competence, but the professional demands excellence. The amateur practices when he feels like it, but the professional practices whether he feels like it or not. Here's what I've observed about practice. It's not always enjoyable in the moment, but it's always rewarding in the long run. The discipline of daily practice builds more than skill, it builds character. It develops patience, persistence, and perseverance. It teaches you that progress often comes in small increments, that mastery is achieved one repetition at a time, one day at a time. But practice without feedback is just repetition. You need to know not just what you're doing, but how well you're doing it. You need to measure your progress, assess your performance, and adjust your approach based on results. This requires honesty, the kind of honest self-evaluation that most people avoid because it can be uncomfortable. The best practitioners develop what I call productive dissatisfaction. They're never fully satisfied with their current level of performance because they can always envision doing better. This isn't negative thinking, it's growth thinking. It's the understanding that there's always another level, always room for improvement, always a way to refine and enhance their skills. This leads us to our fourth principle, which is often overlooked but absolutely essential. The fourth way to become the best at anything is to cultivate the ability to handle rejection, failure, and criticism with grace and wisdom. Now, this might surprise you, but your ability to deal with negative feedback and disappointing results is one of the strongest predictors of your eventual success. Why? Because the path to excellence is paved with failures, lined with rejections, and marked by criticism. It's not a question of whether you'll face these challenges. It's a question of how you'll respond to them. Most people avoid failure like the plague. They play it safe, stay in their comfort zone, and choose the path of least resistance. But here's what they don't understand. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the tuition you pay for success. Every failure teaches you something valuable that success cannot teach. Every rejection shows you what doesn't work so you can focus on what does. Every piece of criticism contains a seed of truth that can help you improve. The key is learning to separate what happened from what it means. Failure doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you tried something that didn't work. Rejection doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you haven't found the right fit yet. Criticism doesn't mean you're worthless. It means you have areas where you can grow. But let me be clear, I'm not suggesting you should seek out failure or enjoy criticism. What I'm suggesting is that you develop the emotional resilience to bounce back from setbacks, the mental toughness to persist through difficulties, and the wisdom to extract valuable lessons from every negative experience. Here's something interesting about highly successful people. They fail more often than unsuccessful people. Why? Because they attempt more, they risk more, they stretch themselves more. They understand that the person who never fails is the person who never tries anything challenging. The best in any field have learned to reframe failure as feedback, rejection as redirection, and criticism as coaching. They've developed what psychologists call anti-fragility, the ability to not just survive stress and setbacks, but to actually grow stronger because of them. This resilience becomes even more important when we consider our fifth principle. The fifth way to become the best at anything is to develop the patience for long-term thinking and the persistence for long-term action. In our instant gratification society, this might be the most difficult principle to embrace. We want results now, success today, recognition immediately. But excellence operates on a different timeline. It's not about what you can achieve in a day or a week or even a month. It's about what you can accomplish over years and decades of focused effort. I often tell people that success is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And like any marathon, it requires pacing yourself, managing your energy, and staying focused on the finish line even when you can't see it. Most people give up too soon. They work hard for a few months, don't see the dramatic results they expected, and conclude that their approach isn't working. But what they don't understand is that success is often like a bamboo plant. The Chinese bamboo plant is watered and fertilized for 4 years with no visible signs of growth. Nothing happens the first year. Nothing happens the second year. Nothing happens the third year. Nothing happens the fourth year. Then in the fifth year, it grows 90 feet in just 90 days. The question is, did it grow 90 feet in 90 days, or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years? The answer is obvious. It took 5 years of consistent care and attention to create the conditions for explosive growth. This is how mastery works. You plant seeds with your daily practice, you water them with your consistent effort, you fertilize them with your learning and growth. And for a long time, you might not see dramatic external changes. But underneath the surface, invisible to others and sometimes even to yourself, you're developing the deep roots of expertise, the strong foundation of skill, the extensive network of knowledge that will eventually support extraordinary performance. Long-term thinking also means making sacrifices today for benefits tomorrow. It means choosing development over entertainment, growth over comfort, investment over consumption. It means understanding that the price of success is paid in advance in small daily deposits of effort and discipline. The best in any field have learned to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. They find joy in the daily practice, satisfaction in the incremental improvements, excitement in the journey itself. This is crucial because if you only enjoy the destination, you'll be miserable during the vast majority of your journey. But long-term thinking without intelligent strategy is just wishful hoping. That's where our sixth principle comes in. The sixth way to become the best at anything is to find and study the best models of excellence in your chosen field. Success leaves clues. Excellence leaves tracks. And the fastest way to achieve outstanding results is to find people who are already achieving them and learn how they do it. This isn't about copying someone else, it's about understanding the principles, strategies, and thought patterns that create exceptional performance. When you study the masters in any field, you begin to notice patterns. They don't all use the same methods, but they often share similar philosophies, attitudes, and approaches. They think differently, they prepare differently, they practice differently, and they respond to challenges differently. By studying these patterns, you can accelerate your own development and avoid many of the mistakes that derail others. But here's what's important. Don't just study their techniques, study their thinking. How do they approach problems? How do they make decisions? How do they handle pressure? What do they focus on that others ignore? What do they avoid that others get trapped by? The methods might be specific to their field, but the mindset often translates across disciplines. Modeling excellence also means understanding that there are multiple paths to the same destination. One master might achieve excellence through meticulous preparation, another through intuitive creativity, and yet another through relentless persistence. The key is finding the approach that aligns with your strengths, temperament, and circumstances while still incorporating the universal principles that all masters share. Don't just read about these masters if possible. Find ways to observe them in action, to learn from them directly, to ask them questions. Most highly successful people are surprisingly generous with their knowledge and experience. They remember what it was like to be where you are now, and many of them are willing to share what they've learned along the way. Remember, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to figure everything out on your own. There are people who have already walked the path you're on, who have already solved the problems you're facing, who have already discovered the strategies that work. Learn from them, adapt their approaches to your situation, and build upon their foundation of knowledge. This brings us to our seventh principle, which is often the difference between good and great. The seventh way to become the best at anything is to develop the ability to maintain peak performance under pressure. Excellence isn't just about what you can do when everything is perfect. It's about what you can do when everything is falling apart. It's not about performing well when you're feeling confident and prepared. It's about performing well when you're nervous, tired, and facing unexpected challenges. Pressure reveals character. It exposes weaknesses and highlights strengths. It separates those who have truly mastered their craft from those who have simply learned to perform in ideal conditions. The best in any field have learned not just to tolerate pressure, but to thrive under it, to use it as a catalyst for exceptional performance rather than an excuse for poor results. But how do you develop this ability? First, you must understand what pressure really is. Pressure is the gap between what's expected and what you're confident you can deliver. When you're fully prepared and completely confident in your abilities, external pressure has very little effect on your performance. It's when you doubt yourself, when you feel unprepared, when you're not sure you can meet the expectations, that pressure becomes overwhelming. This means that the foundation of performing well under pressure is thorough preparation. You must prepare not just for success, but for every possible scenario you might face. You must practice not just when you feel good, but when you feel bad. You must train not just in ideal conditions, but in difficult circumstances. The more challenging situations you've successfully navigated and practiced, the more confident you'll be when facing them in real performance. But preparation alone isn't enough. You must also develop mental and emotional control. This means learning to manage your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and maintain your focus regardless of external circumstances. It means developing routines and rituals that center you, breathing techniques that calm you, and mental strategies that keep you focused on what you can control rather than what you can't. The masters understand that pressure is not something that happens to you, it's something you create for yourself through your thoughts and interpretations. Two people can face the exact same situation and experience completely different levels of pressure based on how they think about it. One sees opportunity while the other sees threat. One focuses on possibilities while the other focuses on problems. Here's something interesting. The best performers often report that their greatest achievements came not in spite of pressure, but because of it. They learn to use pressure as fuel, as motivation, as a force that elevates their performance rather than diminishes it. They discovered that pressure can sharpen your focus, heighten your awareness, and bring out capabilities you didn't even know you had. This ability to perform under pressure is closely connected to our eighth principle. The eighth way to become the best at anything is to develop unshakable confidence through competence. Confidence is not something you're born with, it's something you build through experience, through preparation, through demonstrated competence. Real confidence doesn't come from positive thinking or motivational speeches. It comes from knowing deep in your bones that you have the skills, knowledge, and experience to handle whatever challenges come your way. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance, between self-assurance and self-delusion. True confidence is quiet and calm. It doesn't need to announce itself or prove itself to others. It's an inner knowing, a deep certainty that you're prepared for whatever lies ahead. Arrogance, on the other hand, is loud and desperate. It's often a mask for insecurity, a way of hiding doubt and fear behind bravado and bluster. How do you build genuine confidence? Through what I call deposit building. Every time you prepare thoroughly, every time you practice deliberately, every time you push through a challenge, every time you keep a promise to yourself, you make a deposit in your confidence account. Over time, these deposits accumulate, creating a reserve of self-assurance that you can draw upon when facing difficult situations. But confidence building also requires honest self-assessment. You need to know what you know and what you don't know. You need to understand your strengths and acknowledge your weaknesses. This might seem counterintuitive. How can acknowledging weaknesses build confidence? Because when you know your limitations, you can address them. When you're aware of your gaps, you can fill them. When you understand your vulnerabilities, you can protect against them. The most confident people I know are also the most honest about their abilities. They don't pretend to know things they don't know, and they don't try to be things they're not. But within their areas of competence, they move with assurance and authority. They've earned the right to be confident through years of dedicated preparation and proven performance. Confidence also comes from having a clear philosophy and strong values. When you know what you stand for, when you have principles that guide your decisions, when you have values that define your character, you develop an inner stability that external circumstances cannot shake. You become confident not just in your abilities, but in your identity, not just in what you can do, but in who you are. This inner confidence becomes especially important when we consider our ninth principle. The ninth way to become the best at anything is to cultivate the ability to inspire and influence others through your example. Excellence is rarely a solo achievement. Even in individual pursuits, you need teachers, coaches, mentors, supporters, and sometimes teammates. But more than that, true excellence has a ripple effect. It inspires others, elevates standards, and creates a culture of high performance that extends far beyond your individual achievements. The best in any field understand that their influence extends beyond their personal success. They recognize that they have a responsibility not just to achieve their own potential, but to help others achieve theirs. They become not just high performers, but leaders who elevate everyone around them. But how do you develop this kind of influence? It starts with authenticity. People can sense when someone is genuine and when they're putting on an act. They can tell the difference between someone who has earned their success and someone who is merely pretending. Your influence begins with your integrity, the alignment between who you claim to be and who you actually are. Influence also comes from generosity, the willingness to share your knowledge, experience, and resources with others. The most influential people I know are also the most generous. They understand that success is not a zero-sum game, that helping others succeed doesn't diminish their own achievements, and that the best way to get what you want in life is to help others get what they want. But perhaps most importantly, influence comes from example. People don't follow what you say, they follow what you do. They don't believe your words, they believe your actions. They're not inspired by your promises, they're inspired by your performance. The most powerful form of leadership is not telling people what to do, but showing them what's possible. When you consistently demonstrate excellence in your chosen field, when you maintain high standards regardless of circumstances, when you treat others with respect and dignity, when you keep your commitments and honor your word, you become someone others want to emulate. You become a model of what's possible, a living example of what excellence looks like in practice.